was a year of highlights and records. Rob's already mentioned BioPoint in China, and this is a very deliberate initiative and coming together of a few of the Institute's strengths and purposes. We believe, and of course we're not alone, that China is, as it's becoming the richest country in the world, is going to be an important contributor in one way, shape or form as the years roll on to global health and to medical research. And so it's a very deliberate strategy for the Institute, who's been continuously in China for 20 years, to have a strategy which is managed and led by Lisa Renken to access effectively that income from China and to broaden the our avenues for revenue. And the strategy is broad, but this involves the establishment of a new biotech facility, as Rob said. It's a great highlight for the Institute to have established that, initially with a grant from the Nanjing government, written and argued for in Chinese. And then Chinese investor has come in significantly contributing to the establishment of BioPoint since then. And of course it's to make point-of-care diagnostics, as Rob has said, which is a great strength of this institute outside of the BioPoint structure. And those elements that came together. And what we hope to do is to make significant profit from this country and not take that to make ourselves rich, but of course use that for our public health and research activities, preferably in the region, preferably in China, where of course many, very, very large proportion of the world's extremely poor and vulnerable live, despite that country's success in other areas. That's a great highlight. There are so many others in public health. For me, that just sprung out last year is the continued and amazing emergence of our Myanmar program. Well, 150 full-time staff now in that country. It's very broad, 12 different activities. I think around $12 million or so of activities on the books. And a decent proportion of those are now research-based. One of those very significant activities is public health activity in malaria, in the containment of artemisinin resistance, particularly in difficult areas. And that's another highlight for me, the public health work in malaria more generally, including and especially in our activities in PNG, as well as what's happening in Myanmar. Away from our traditional strength in malaria, which is in the laboratories, which has continued, this is very major public health work in malaria. It's a great highlight of 2014. A lot of, it's a danger focusing on highlights because, of course, you miss out on so many things, and with people around going, why didn't I mention this? Why didn't I mention that? But locally, there's a really long list. The one that just sprung to mind, and I only used things that sprung to mind that I've talked to a lot of people about, is the rapid diagnostics HIV testing facility, Pronto, here in Victoria, responding to research that Burnet had a lot to do with, that said there are plenty of people in the high-risk groups here in Victoria and throughout Australia who don't know they're HIV positive. And this is a response to what the barriers to testing are. And it's a work in progress, and it's an experiment in and of itself, but it's a very exciting activity that Burnet is a strong part of. So there's public health activities merging into research, and of course then there's more hardcore research activities in the Institute, and for those it was a record year again for the Institute. 216 publications, peer-reviewed publications, more than we've ever had before, and they range from papers in Nature right through to the discipline-specific journals that are appropriate for our work to be published, whether it be laboratory-based or field and epidemiology-based. That's a great credit to a staff that has not significantly increased in number. So the output is just higher. You deserve tremendous credit for that. Another highlight that contributed to those 216 publications is the number of PhD and honours students we had, which is 71 or so last year, I think, Paul, with 54 PhD students in the Institute. Really significant contribution to education and to, of course, Australia's future. And they are drivers of, not just in training, of course, but many of the best stuff that comes from the best research that comes out of the Institute has a PhD student either driving it or involved. I don't need to go in detail into quality of the research, but perhaps just point towards the NHMRC success rate. The Institute, for the second year in a row, had the second highest success rate in the country of 100 or so administering institutions, twice the national average for grants put in to grants awarded. It's becoming an incredibly competitive scheme. We need to be competitive, but that also is a great indicator of quality and great credit to everybody involved. So it was an extraordinary year, both financially and programmatically, and high points are all contained in here, and some greater detail than I have gone into.